A decade ago, a priest moved to a Malaysian island with his wife and daughter to spread God's message. At first, the locals embraced them, visiting the new church daily. However, tensions grew as followers of the island's traditional gods resisted his influence. Strange symbols and masks appeared, and the church was eventually burned down. In the present, American teenager Toby ignores his father David's request to help fix the car, choosing his phone instead. David works alone but is ambushed by masked attackers who stab him and steal the car. Toby, distracted by the TV, only hears the vehicle speeding away. When he finally steps outside, it's too late. The news reports his father's murder, leaving Toby overwhelmed with guilt. Toby's mother takes him to a psychologist, who suggests a special trauma recovery program. The program involves taking participants to a remote, uninhabited island for self-reflection. Toby reluctantly agrees, hoping it will help him cope with his father's death. A few weeks later, he boards a boat to the island, feeling nauseous from the waves. This makes him an easy target for a prank, and he's pushed into the water. After a long day of sailing, the group's leader, Kay, explains the plan. Each participant will spend 3 days alone on a different island with only basic supplies: a sleeping bag, tarp, torch, food, and a flare for emergencies. The next morning, Kay drops Toby off, reminding him to be on the shore at dawn in 3 days. As the boat leaves, memories of the night his father's body was taken resurface, but he pushes them aside. He builds a flimsy tent and talks to himself to ease the loneliness. While gathering wood, he finds coconuts but uncovers a dead monkey, triggering his father's death memory. Returning to his tent, he's devastated to see a monkey has stolen half his food. Toby struggles to start a fire, injuring his hand in the process. Frustrated, he wades into the water to catch fish but steps on sharp shells, cutting his foot. He manages to find clams, but his bleeding foot draws the attention of a strange mask deep in the sea. Later, he uses his Swiss knife to open the clams and discovers a magnifying glass, which finally helps him start a fire. That night, the clams make him sick. After vomiting, he ventures into the jungle with his torchlight to find coconuts for water. As he spots them, he hears footsteps behind him. Shaking the torchlight, he glimpses a creepy face behind a tree before it vanishes. Terrified, he flees, lights a flare, and passes out. By morning, the high tide has taken most of his belongings. The next morning, Toby wakes beneath a tree and finds cut coconuts waiting for him. After drinking, he spots a girl in the water. When she tries to leave, he follows. She suddenly turns with a knife not to attack him but to hunt an animal caught in one of her traps. She introduces herself as Madeleine and warns that staying is dangerous. As they move on, Toby notices the deadly traps but gets no answers from her. They reach an abandoned dam where Madeleine starts a fire, cooks her catch, and shares it with Toby. Afterward, she insists he can't come with her. When he tries, she stops him again, this time killing a snake before it strikes. Before leaving, she advises him to stay near the fire for safety. Left alone, Toby follows her advice, settling into a makeshift shelter and drifting into sleep. That night, Toby dreams of one of his father's killers attacking him, but he wakes to find it was just a nightmare. Realizing the fire has died, he tries to relight it, unsettled by strange noises. Thinking Madeleine might be nearby, he enters the jungle and finds a thread tied to eerie decorations on a tree. When he pulls it, a creepy figure appears but vanishes when he turns. In the morning, Toby wakes to see Madeleine cooking. She notices his injured foot and takes him to find a healing plant. She explains she's lived on the island since childhood with only her mother after her father's death. When they find the plant, she applies it to Toby's wound, warning him not to eat it. After testing it on him, Toby realizes his lips feel numb. Madeleine and Toby spend the day together on the island as she teaches him survival skills: fishing, shelter building, and identifying useful plants. In return, Toby tells her about the modern world, introducing concepts like high fives and the internet. As evening falls, Madeleine prepares to leave. Toby watches her walk toward a tree decorated with strange ornaments. Before parting, she gives him a spear for protection and warns him not to follow, as her mother will harm him if he does. She promises to return in the morning, but Toby reveals that people are coming for him at dawn. This stings Madeleine, making her feel abandoned. She runs to her hidden treehouse, leaving Toby behind. At dawn, Kay arrives at the beach, only to find Toby missing. She hears him calling Madeleine's name and rushes into the jungle with her torch. The eerie jungle is filled with strange noises, and as she stumbles, her torch slips from her grasp. Suddenly, a blinding light appears. Thinking it's Toby, she moves closer, but the light flickers out, leaving her in darkness. As she reaches for the torch, something cold brushes her hand upon. She freezes. A scream pierces the night. The next morning, Toby wakes up, realizing he fell asleep calling for Madeleine. He rushes to the beach, but it's empty. Hours later, he spots a life buoy floating nearby. Swimming out, he follows a trail of objects leading to Kay's overturned boat. To his shock, Madeleine's mother emerges, taking Kay's supplies. After she leaves, Toby searches the boat and finds 2 flares. But the real horror comes when he discovers Kay's body behind a door. Panicked, he flees but gets caught on another door. Struggling, he barely escapes. Later, Toby finds Kay's torch with strange scratches. Using its light, he ventures into Madeleine's tree entrance, discovering a rocky tunnel. Suddenly, a creepy creature appears, making him drop the torch. In the darkness, he scrambles for it, then sees eerie drawings on the walls. Toby reaches the tunnel's end and emerges at the ruins of a burned church. Hearing a goat bleeding, he spots Madeleine's mother slaughtering it. Searching further, he finds the cabin where they live. Inside, he discovers Kay's empty bag, 3 passports, and an old photo revealing that Madeleine and her mother arrived with the priest years ago. He also finds gasoline and, most importantly, Kay's radio. He tries to call for help, but the line cuts off after a brief hello. As he hides under the bed, Madeleine and her mother return. The mother prepares a concoction using a dumbing plant and argues with Madeleine, who refuses to leave. Toby, staying out of sight, finds a creepy mask, the face of the creature that attacked him. After the mother leaves, Madeleine warns Toby of danger and promises to meet him at the beach. Toby returns to the beach, using his survival skills to catch fish and start a fire. While eating, he spots a blinking light across the island and builds a larger fire to signal back. That night, Madeleine appears, surprised he's still there. Toby reveals Kay is dead and suspects her mother killed her. Madeleine rests her head on his leg, recalling childhood memories, happy times that ended when she saw her blood-soaked mother telling her not to look. She fears her mother is responsible for the deaths. Toby suggests they escape together, and Madeleine agrees but plans to return tomorrow to avoid suspicion. The next morning, Toby hears a plane but misses it. Chasing after it, he stumbles upon an abandoned lighthouse. Inside, he realizes the light needs gasoline to work. On his way back to the beach, Toby unexpectedly runs into Cameron, another participant who was never picked up. Cameron found a rowboat and has been searching for survivors, as his island is deserted. Toby shares food and recounts his experiences while crafting a new spear. When Cameron warns him about trusting murderers, Toby becomes defensive, pointing the spear at him. After calming down, he insists Madeleine is also a victim and refuses to leave without her. Toby reaches the house but is ambushed by Madeleine's mother, who disarms him. He escapes, but she chases him and accidentally falls into one of Madeleine's traps, impaling herself. With little time left, she pleads with Toby, revealing she never killed anyone. She only wanted to scare people away because the true danger is Madeleine. Years ago, the locals warned them about evil on the island, but the priest dismissed their fears. Madeleine unknowingly walked to an altar used for sacrifices, allowing a demon to take hold of her. Since then, the killings have continued. Toby, shaken, realizes the truth: Madeleine may not be who he thought she was. Madeleine killed everyone in the church, sparing only her mother, who gives Toby a special plan to subdue Madeleine and warns that she fears light when possessed. She begs Toby not to let her leave the island. At camp, Cameron hears strange noises and ventures into the jungle. He finds a pile of bones but fails to notice the real danger, a demonic Madeleine. She drags him to his death. By the time Toby returns, only Cameron's blood remains. Madeleine appears carrying her mother's body, but turns human upon seeing Toby. He lies, claiming he killed her mother for them to be together. Madeleine, pleased, kisses him, but Toby secretly retrieves the plant. As she transforms, he knocks her out, forces the plant into her mouth, ties her up, and prepares a torch for the lighthouse. Toby leaves the torch at the door to keep animals away and heads upstairs to turn on the light, remembering how his dad taught him to start a car. As Madeleine stirs, Toby waits for a boat, but when no one arrives, he decides to leave. He trips on the stairs, spilling gasoline and noticing the special plant growing nearby. Suddenly, the door slams shut, and demonic Madeleine hides in the shadows. Toby grabs some of the plant but is overpowered. She forces the juice into his eyes before retreating when the light hits her. Toby washes his face and finds a glass shard. He hesitates when he sees little Madeleine crying by the door, but it's a trap. She lunges at him just as a boat approaches. He must act fast. Desperate, Toby grabs the shard again. When Madeleine seizes his wrist, he reflects the light onto her face, burning her. She retreats, and Toby runs outside, tossing the torch onto a gasoline trail to start a fire. Madeleine, now human again, pleads for mercy, but Toby slams the door and flees. On the beach, he sees a boat approaching the lighthouse. Wading into the water, he shouts for help, but the noise allows demonic Madeleine to attack. She kills him instantly. The rescuer, unaware, takes Madeleine aboard, assuming she turned on the lighthouse. As he looks away, Madeleine smirks, still possessed. She's ready to unleash chaos on the city. Subscribe and enable notifications for more videos. Thanks for watching.